and we're going to go ahead and start. So first, I'd like to welcome all of you to the 2023 senior trip. It is hard to believe that more than half of our school year is already behind us, and we are preparing to embark on some much warmer weather, although the winter. First, start by thanking Mr. Glock, who has done a tremendous amount of work in making sure that this trip runs smoothly and making sure that all the information goes out at the right times and that we are able to do what we do. So I'm excited for this year's trip. This is our largest group that has ever gone in the history of the trip, with 333 senior students attending the trip. So that exceeds our typical total by about roughly 30 students. So it's super exciting for us. We have added a couple of chaperones just in case you were wondering how we're handling that. And we are truly looking forward to it. To date, we are the only school in Somerset County that continues to go on a senior trip to Disney. So it's a really big deal. It's something that we've been able to do because we are the best of the best, and our students are absolutely the best. And because they're so wonderful, we're able to continue to do this. With that being said, I need you to know the senior trip is a privilege. So far, every student has met all of the requirements, whether it be attendance, whether it be academics. So you're in good attendance, you continue to go to school regularly, you don't have any attendance issues. You're in a situation where you can use credit. Academically, you're passing your classes and you're doing what you need to do in the classroom. And to put it bluntly, you haven't been suspended. So if any of those things should waver between now and we actually leave for the trip, you will be placed in a position where you won't be able to go. If that should happen, we'll get as much money as we can back to you, but we do not guarantee a full refund at this point because that money has been encumbered into flights and all of those other things. So please talk to your students who are listening. Please be aware of what you're responsible for. Grades, attendance, don't get in trouble. Our number one job is to enable you to have a good time, but in order to do that, there are some simple rules that we need you to follow. Mr. Glock is going to go over a whole bunch of different things. My job is to go over the less than fun stuff. I did think about looking at some of the staff members that are out here with me. I can guarantee that screenshots of me would be going around the school before the meeting could ever end. Mrs. Shanahan, I see you lit. So a couple of things that you need to know: drugs and alcohol. Whether it be a school rule or just the law, drugs and alcohol are absolutely prohibited at any time during the trip. If we suspect a student to be under the influence, they will be in violation of both Board of Ed policy and law. The local police department and parents will be contacted. We do not have the same discretion in Florida that we would have in the state of New Jersey. So we would indeed have to contact the local authorities. You would have to fly down to pick up your child. We would bring your child to the nearest hospital so that way they could be seen by a doctor, and we would contact you from there. I need you to know that violations of any local laws get reported to the police. We have a wonderful working relationship with the police in Montgomery. We don't have that same relationship when we leave the state and we go to another municipality. This is a school function. Even for the state of New Jersey, all of the schools still apply. So there are a number of rules that are listed in the packet. The regular conduct applies. There are some things that are relaxed, like you can't wear a bathing suit to class, wear a bathing suit to Disney. But I need you to know that violation of any of the school rules, especially when it comes to drugs, alcohol, tobacco, vaping, could result in consequences that are as much as your parent picking you up from the trip, flying home at your own cost. And then there are other school consequences that could jeopardize future events, including prom, graduation, and all of the other senior activities that exist for the rest of the year. I cannot say this enough, and every year somebody wants to test it. While we are in the airport, behavior is absolutely important. There can be no jokes. As we all know, we're no longer in a time where we can just say something and have it pass. So joking around about anything while you're in the airport, I'm just going to ask you not to do it, especially when it comes to anything that's violence, weapons, or anything like that. Please make sure that when you're going through security, you're going through security seriously and doing everything that is asked of you. Mr. Glock will go over what you can and cannot take on a plane, but I just need you to, when you're in line, just pretend you're with your parents. And in that case, that's all of us. We give everybody a lot of freedom while we're in Florida. I need all the parents to know that everybody is indeed assigned to a chaperone. There are multiple points throughout the day that we check in with our students. We expect them to be back. We give them time to rest, but not time to just hang out in rooms and things like that. We are in Florida. We're going to Disney parks. We're enjoying all of those opportunities while we're there. We will also have chaperones stationed in all of the parks, just in case there is an emergency. Cards will be given with cell phone numbers that are important to every student going on the trip. On that card will be Mr. Glock's cell phone number, our nurse's cell phone number, and one of our class advisors, I believe it's Coach Biggs' number that will be on there. Students will also have the number of their individual chaperones. So who's ever lucky enough to get me gets my cell phone number. We expect students to use those numbers seriously and as needed. We will have a nurse available for the entirety of the trip. So whether it be medications, which we're going to talk about in a little while, or blisters, sunburn, whatever may happen during the course of the trip, we do have someone there that's capable of triaging the situation. And then inevitably there are cases where we have to take kids to doctors or the hospital or whatever it may be. Each park, so kids get a 5-day hopper pass. All of the parks, Mr. Glock is going to go over with you and how to access those parks. There is a medical station at every park. Every park has our information, so that way, should something happen, every park knows how to get in contact with us. We will have 2 rental cars, which are for emergency use only. They're not for transporting kids from park to park. It's not the quick way to avoid the shuttles or anything like that. They really are for just emergencies. So, with all that being said, the fun stuff is next. So, Mr. Glock, take us away.
Thank you. I can't tell you how excited I am to be kind of the next wave of this after Mike Irvin shepherded us along for so long in doing this. And before we get started with the stuff, I want to pay your attention to 2 logistical items. If you open the Q&A into the answered questions, there is a question in there about a link to the permission slip. There's also a question in there about a link to the form for the senior events like senior barbecue and whatnot. Mr. Figueroa is going to drop into the answer for that a form. So before we even get started with this, for anybody who has not filled out the permission slip or has not filled out those forms, I'm going to suggest that you click them and you leave them open in another tab so that when we conclude this meeting, you can fill out of those forms. Filling out those permission slip forms is a required element of attending this trip. And I will need to hunt you down, but don't want to. There were only 95 people who responded to that permission slip to date, and we have 333 students attending this trip. That email, those links were originally sent in an email by Ms. Pino on January 25th. But again, they are in the answered questions right now. So please, before you are go to sleep tonight, fill out those permission slips, parents. I want to thank everybody. Parents, I have to thank you because your kids would not be in this position without you, not only your support, but also monetary support in dealing with this. We only have 27 days until we're on a plane to get down there. Kids, you have earned the right to be on this trip, and I need you to remember that though you have earned it now, it continues to be a privilege, and you can, by your own actions, lose that privilege. So do not get suspended between now and the senior trip. Doesn't matter if we are 1 day out. Okay, our policy dictates that you will be removed from the trip. Remain in good academic standing. That is also a requirement to attend this trip, and that is consistently being evaluated. If you're not on track to graduate, you will not go. Excuse me. Parents, on this trip, kids are going to be with kids, and that's what we are looking to have happen. And I know that we need you to speak to your children and have them understand that maybe some of the best connections that you're going to make are connections you don't even have yet. You need to be open to hanging out with new people. There's a lot of time away from the hotel and the parks, and it is so much fun. And everybody is kind of going in a lot of different directions. And perhaps if your child wants to go one direction that the people that they're hanging out with don't want to go, you may latch on to another group. And our kids are just very welcoming in this environment. It's something that happens every year. So please encourage that. Talking about that paperwork, additional to the permission slips. And my dog Foz is very excited about the permission slips. I'm sorry. That there is a medication form that was sent in a separate email by Ms. Pino on January the 25th. All medication on this trip needs to be dispensed by our nurse. Starting tomorrow and ending at the end of the day on February 24th, you're going to need to bring to school and give to the nurse in its original container the medication that your child is going to need on this trip. Please put only the amount of medication in that original container that your child needs. We don't need extras. If your child is prescribed an asthma inhaler or an EpiPen, that is going to be kept on their person. We want them to have that at all times. And if you're having an issue getting a prescription filled by that February 24th date, just need you to reach out to Mrs. Rabbit by email, and she will work all of that out with you. Another thing that she and I spoke about this afternoon, I know there may be questions about medication. I don't even want to address any questions about medication in our chat here. Mrs. Rabbit would prefer if you emailed her separately to discuss anything specific to your child. But that medication form and the pills in their original container is how we will accept it and bring it down there with us. If your child is not bringing any medication down there, you don't even need to fill out that separate medication form at all. So don't worry about that. Our packing list, all of the rules that have existed in the FAA and TSA for the last, 20 years still remain. 3 ounces or less of liquids. Water bottles are a no-no, unless they're like, a Yeti that's empty. But if something has liquid in it, they're gonna make you throw it out. So we need to make sure that we don't have that. You need shoes that you're gonna be able to walk in for 8 to 10 hours, kids. Sandals and flip-flops are dangerous because Fozzie, come here, buddy. I was trying to see if he would come on camera. I'm sorry. The wearing sandals around Disney for 8 to 10 hours results in blisters and calluses like you would not even believe. So students, I know you're going to want to get dressed up at least, maybe one night and go out to a really nice dinner. I'm still going to advise you, make sure you bring shoes you can walk in that maybe you're going to want to change out of after you take some pictures or something like that. Identification. I know that most of you have a driver's license or a passport. If you have both, we are going to highly encourage that you leave your passport at home and you use your driver's license just in case we lose identification. If you are a student who does not have either a driver's license or a passport, I'm going to need you to come down to my office and see me tomorrow. I know that is a small number of you, but I need to touch base with you individually. As far as when you're down there, spending money. Kids are going to need some spending money down there. We would say something between $200 and $250, depending on your kind of spending habits. There is a safe in each of the rooms if you're going to bring cash. So just make sure that you have some of that. We do give out those $130 meal cards that are swipeable and good at a lot of places in Disney. You can Google just exactly which places and which parks accept that. I know there was a question in the Q&A that Mr. Pug answered about some of that, so you can give that a look. Ms. Pino referenced the fact that we're going to have cards that we give with our cell phone numbers on it. I'm happy to give mine out to anybody that needs it. But parents, check in with your kids. Give them a call. I mean, this is such a fun time. They're going to be anxious to talk to you. They're probably not going to want to talk to you for an hour, but check in with them, make sure that you know how they're doing. But in terms of getting us, the kids will be able to get a hold of us in case of emergency, and in addition to their chaperones, who are always going to be sharing their contact information with the kids. Once we are in for the night at Disney and we bring everybody back, chaperones are going to meet with the kids each night, and then we hire security guards who will stay awake all night and make sure that our kids are not sneaking out and going anywhere, trying to do something nefarious. And we have that pretty much on lockdown, so nobody needs to be worried about that. Students, should you try to leave your rooms after we are in for the night, you're not going to enjoy the consequences. It's going to make for a much, much less enjoyable rest of your Disney experience. It'll be far less magical. So we're going to need you to pay attention to that. Parking and pickup. Here's a logistical item that it never fails year after year. Even though we're going to have our kids reach out to you, parents, to come and get them, somebody's always late, and it feels like it's always freezing. Parents, please do not be late in picking up your child. And when you come in and park at the school, I'm going to ask that you not park around the loop. I'm going to ask that you park in parking spots, and I'm even going to go one step farther than that, and I'm going to ask you to back into your parking spot, because getting in and out, there's a lot of people in and out at that time, and it happens pretty quickly, and things can get a little hairy, so please be attentive to that. Students, you cannot leave cars at school. It's just something that Montgomery PD does not allow us to do. Staff can't even leave cars at school, so we have to find our own rides to and from in order to get on this trip as well. But when it can be what you can do as a family is, if your child drives, you can drop a car off for them on Saturday only, not before that. And you can figure out a system, whatever you want to do, to leave the keys, and the kids can drive home. Flights A and B going down to Disney are very, very, very early. Need you to reference the material that was given to you already about when we are going to need our students at school. It's sometime around 2:15 a.m. for flights A and B. And we need you to not be late. I know it's an odd time, and I know it's early. We had no control over it. But I will tell you this in no uncertain terms. If you're late, we're leaving, and there's no opportunity for you to get on a later flight with us. So I need you to be on time and getting to school, because there's things that we as chaperones have to do when you get there in order for us to be okay getting on the bus and then subsequently getting on a plane. So get there on time. Flight C, you have a little bit of a more manageable, though probably earlier than you're used to, arrival at school. It's before 6 a.m., but a little more manageable than 2:15. Just is what it is. You're going to report to school that morning in the front of the science wing, and you're going to enter the building from that side if that's where we're going. Luggage, you are allowed one check bag and one carry-on. Please limit yourselves to those two things. Nothing sharp, 50 pounds or lighter, the very typical things that TSA normally has. We search every student's luggage and carry-on before we let them put it on the bus and before we head off to the airport. Airline behavior, Ms. Pino spoke about it. You're going to sit in the seats that you're assigned to on the plane. You're not going to make any jokes. We just are not going to have that. Pretty simple, end of story. Zero tolerance for that. We're going to be the most humorless people in the world when we're at the airport. Sunscreen. Folks, the sun in Florida is warm and really hot. And if you're like, oh, I'll be fine, I promise you, you won't be fine. And if it happens to you on day one, it's going to make for a really miserable next 4 days down in Disney. Bring sunscreen, wear sunscreen, drink water, drink more water than you think you need. Dehydration happens quickly. These are long days. So we don't really want, anything bad dehydration wise happening to the kids. So we're going to keep encouraging that, but have that in your head the entire time. You can go to every park that Disney has, and we can go to the water park one time. Okay. The reason why I wanted everybody to make reservations at the Disney parks, whatever park, on every single day that we're there, is because traditionally we have gone to the water park on Wednesday. And if the weather is great, that is the day we're going to go to the water park. We're going to delineate the day that we're going to tell Disney this is when our kids are going to go to the water park. But I would like to be a little flexible if the weather is bad on one day and good on another day. So while I would like you all to make sure that you have park reservations for somewhere, I need you to understand that one of those days only will be the day that you can go to the water park. We'll tell you that when we get closer. It's going to depend on the weather. Again, I apologize I know in that first video that I'd sent out to everybody, I'd said that we were going to have automatic reservations made at parks for every day, but Disney kind of threw me for a little bit of a loop on that one and didn't accomplish the task by the time they told me they were going to accomplish the task. And I had already given the cards out to everybody and only found out subsequently that Disney didn't do what they said they were going to do for me. So I apologize for that. So please make park reservations. I think it goes without saying, but I'm going to reiterate the no alcohol and no vaping policy. Don't test us on this, kids. There are things that make this trip wonderful, and the fastest way to make it something that you will never forget in a negative way is to test us on that policy. Okay, it will be bad. It will cut your trip short. It will cut privileges short for the rest of the year. Imagine graduation happening and your name not being read because you're not there. Those are the types of consequences we're talking about, because if we don't adhere to policies like that, we probably won't be doing this trip for much longer. Okay. Can't tell you how serious I am about that stuff. Do you know Disney has a jail? I can tell you that Disney has a jail. And you probably don't want to know why I know that, but I do know that Disney has a jail. So students, to sum up and for me to kind of put a beginning to an end of this talk, we need you to use the most common sense that you have. We need you all to remember that you are ambassadors of Montgomery High School. And the reason why we are able to do this trip is because we trust you. And you need to act in the ways that we know Montgomery students act. All the positive press that we've gotten as a school on social media in the last week for the way our kids act, that is pretty much what I'm expecting out of everybody in our 5 days down in Orlando. So please keep the reputation of not only who you are and who your family is, but who Montgomery is in your mind as you make decisions for 5 days on your own. That is pretty much how where I am. If you have not paid your balance in full for this trip, you need to pay that by the end of the week. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to go on this trip. And before I turn it over to Coach Figs, the only other thing regarding reservations, I put this out in my, and I'm sorry, I got to turn it over to Ms. Pino before I turn it over to Coach Figs. Sorry. I put it in the last video update that I had, but in terms of park reservations, the one huge class activity that we do together happens on Wednesday evening. We're going to ask you to meet us in Epcot at 7:30 for an amazing dessert and to watch the fireworks up close and personal on this patio that we have reserved. So if you are making dinner reservations for Wednesday evening, March the 8th, you're going to need to make sure that those reservations are early enough so that you can be inside of Epcot and meeting us where we tell you to meet us by 7:30 p.m. So probably a little bit of an earlier dinner reservation for you than maybe some of the other nights. And coming back, we're going to make sure a good guideline is no reservations after 8 p.m. Because sometimes getting home from Disney Springs can take you upwards of an hour just because of how the Disney buses run. Thank you all for making my life as easy as it could possibly be in this logistical task. I have so much enjoyed getting to know so many more seniors than I knew that were just on my caseload as a counselor. And when I saw that number of 333 kids, knowing how much bigger that was than any trip we've ever had before, it just gets me so excited that this is everybody's excited to be back. And I can't tell you how excited I am to be kind of at the forefront of it. So Ms. Pino, what else do you have?
Mr. Glock, can you hear me clearly without me going in and out?
I can now that I think
Okay.
you were a little closer to the computer. It's good.
I am very close to my computer now. I do not have to sit this close at work. So I'm just going to give a 5-sentence summary of what I said before. Thank you for the text messages and emails letting me know that it was going in and out. Keith, if I start going in and out, just wave your hands. This is the long and short of it. We love this trip. It is our best time that we have with your children. It is the first toe in the pond to them becoming adults and getting ready to go off to college. But
Okay, slow down. There you go.
Remember that there are rules. Please stick to them, whether they be laws or school rules, and you will stay out of trouble. If you break rules, your parents will have to come and get you. That is expensive. Can everybody still hear me?
Yeah, I can reiterate what you're saying there. When I was referencing and Ms. Pino was referencing the rules and the guidelines that we have given you, should you choose to violate those rules, your parents will come to Florida and pick you up. And there are no questions asked about that. Parents, this is part of the deal that you are making by allowing your child to go on this trip. And should they do something egregious enough where they need to go home, we're not bringing them home. You're coming to get them. And there will also be privileges lost post Disney because of those decisions that you make. So make good decisions. And you weren't unhearable, Ms. Pino, either. It was just less than ideal. We'll say that.
I'm going to say this last thing. In all of my time in Montgomery, so in my 14 years, we have not had somebody get in trouble and have to go home. I would like to keep that run and look forward to enjoying this with your children.
All right. So are we good? Can I throw it to Coach Figs now? You know, or you feel okay about that? Awesome. I will turn this over to Mr. Figueroa for a second. And again, if you look in the Q&A, just to remind everybody, if anybody joined late, there is a question at the beginning of this chat that asks about permission slips. Click that and keep that open in a tab. What Ms. Ritson asked a question about a senior events link form, and Mr. Figueroa answered that. Click that and keep that open in a tab. And he's going to tell you a little bit more about that now. Fill out both of those forms before you go to sleep tonight. Coach.
Thanks, Mr. Glock. I'm going to talk on my phone. I'm having audio issues with my other computer. Can someone just let me know if you can hear me?
You're golden, Figs.
Thank you.
Good decision on the phone.
Thank you. Yeah, my laptop broke at school, so I'm using a Chromebook. So as the middle of the meeting was going on, the audio went out. So I went to my phone. So thank you guys for your time. I did put a link on there for all the senior parents. I'm one of the class advisors. Coach Upshaw is also in the meeting. He's the other class advisor for the senior class. And we have a Google form that we made, and we will be e-blasting it as well. So even if you don't save the link or you close out of it, we will make sure that all the senior parents get this link after the meeting. And it's maybe 4 or 5 questions. If you're interested in volunteering, the 2 big events that we really need help with is the senior barbecue, which is what we do every year in June. It's the first Wednesday in June of every school year. And we also have the senior breakfast that we do at graduation. So if you're interested in helping out, we really need volunteers. Without the parents, those events honestly, they don't happen. We really need your people to help out. The kids love seeing the parents that are volunteering, and you know, Coach Upshaw and I really appreciate your help. So if you can, please go to the Google form and sign up for that. And then Coach Upshaw and I will be reaching out to you guys sometime in the next week or so, and we'll go from there. I know you guys been on long, so I don't want to talk too long. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks, Coach Glock.
You got it. All right. I want to thank everybody for attending. 27 days, and then we're off and running. Have a great rest of the night.